Hello brave adventurers, Ryan here from D&D Awakening, and in this heartwarming story, we have a TPK that helps save the world of Dungeons and Dragons. So if you are new here and have not already done so, and don't want to miss out on amazing daily content, then don't forget to hit that subscribe button and click that bell icon to be notified every time we upload a new video. On to the story. A TPK that saved the world. A little backstory of the players and their characters for their upcoming piece of pure goodness. There's me. I've been playing pen and paper games for decades and decided for this game to be a half-orc barbarian who liked making sure that animals were always taken care of, no matter what. Now that meant walking beside the horse instead of riding it, pulling the wagon that the players rode around in instead of having the horse do it, using himself as bait instead of a familiar that would have just revived anyways. Basically, friend to all magical creatures. There's John, also been playing P&P games for decades alongside me, best friends, and we share the same blood type, so there is that. He's playing an elf ranger who is the exiled son of an elvish king. However, 2 sessions in, he has his memory wiped, falls in love with a barmaid that was basically the DM's way of giving us info, and decided to start dating her. Eventually marries her, and it leads to his character having a crisis of whether he wants his old memories back, as it might change how he feels about his barmaid and love. Then there's Jane, who's been part of this group for the last decade, joined up when we were running All Flesh Must Be Eaten, and after she shoved a stick of dynamite up a zombie's butt, she's been tight with the group ever since. She's playing an elf fighter who's actually a bodyguard for John's character. Her character wants nothing more than to help John get his memory back, but realises that he may be better off without it. She also has been having doubts about what her role is now, since she was a bodyguard to old John and now John is a completely different person. Next we have Jack, Jane's younger brother who started playing with us once he finished with high school. Jack's character is a human rogue who is basically a mixture of Robin Hood and Santa Claus. He steals from the rich whenever he can and basically gives 90% of it back to the poor kids who could use it. He also has a steadfast rule about not killing unless it is absolutely necessary, which makes his sneak attacks all the more thrilling since he does not go for them every single instance of combat. What a rogue! Next we have Joe, the DM, also an avid fan of Harry Dresden, which isn't important to the story, but I appreciate me making sure you all knew it. He has been DMing most of our campaigns for the last 20 or so years, everything from D&D to Pathfinder, and even some homebrew stuff involving mechs and schoolgirls, as in the mechs were schoolgirls. The backstory of the campaign is that a portal had opened and was spewing forth demons and eldritch horrors and such all across the land. The portal itself would also disappear and reappear at random spots and at random times throughout the campaign. This meant that we could be in the middle of putting on a play for the local orphans, something we regularly did, and suddenly the portal would appear over the stage and demons would spew out and we'd have to fight them all while wearing silly costumes and fake beards. The one behind all this was a Dracolic by the name of Barakas, who seek to unleash the Eldritch Dragon, kill it and then take over its body. For those who don't know about Dracolics, they're dragons who manage to achieve lichdom and can possess any dead reptilian body, from a small gecko all the way up to a chromatic dragon if it wanted, but Brax wanted the most powerful dragon as his body, and he was willing to put the fate of the world at risk to get it. Our party joined up to stop Brax, for different reasons. My character didn't want any more animals getting hurt in the process of these portals being opened, and he saw liches as an affront to nature to begin with. Let the dead stay dead, you know. John's original motive was that if he stopped Brax, he could gain favour back and rejoin his family in his kingdom. But after losing his memory and falling in love with a barmaid, he wanted to stop Brax because if the world was in danger, then so was his beloved. Jane's reasoning was that she had to protect John, but then it was revealed that her main reason was that when she was younger, she'd witnessed a lich kill her parents in front of her and didn't want any other child to go through that type of pain. Jack figured that even if the Dracolich was undead, it was still a dragon and thus should have some good loot, as dragons are ones who tend to hoard all that stuff. With our reasons for saving the world set, we moved on with our adventure. The first couple of sessions involved us actively hunting down the portals and stopping the demons as they came. After that though, we began to actually explore social scenes with a passion, as Joe always made sure that any NPCs he made at least a paragraph's worth of backstory and a welcoming attitude to our characters. We at one point managed to help turn an old rundown tavern back into a thriving spot that would bring a business back into a poor town. Another time we came across poachers and hunters who were actively killing more than they needed to. My barbarian was ready to exact some revenge when it's revealed that the hunters are only doing this so the pack of feral trolls roaming the forest will leave after they don't have enough food for them to eat. One of the saddest things to happen was when we came across a lost child in the forest and decided to take her along with us until we could find some way to find her a new home. In the middle of the night, she had been lured off again by nefarious forest spirits, and by the time our group found her and a bunch of other children, they'd been drained of their life force. This was something Joe was sad to do, but felt he needed to do as we had been told that the urgency was important. Something Joe was sad to do, but felt he needed to do as we had been told the urgency was important, and we got hung up after Jack's rogue failed a charisma check to ask the forest spirit to return the children. Jack was the most hung up over this, and he feels it's his fault entirely that he couldn't save the girl or the other children. The point I'm making is that our group had fleshed out characters and we had fun sessions where we go entire time and not even get into combat. Then we arrived near the end of the story. Joe even told us the end was fast approaching and we confronted Brax at his fortress that had been displaced to another dimension. We fought through the undead, we managed to avoid many traps, we even freed a goblin NPC that had been sort of like Brax's little snivelling minion the entire campaign, simply because he begged us to free him, and we were all nice enough people to do so. But the time came that we confronted Brax, who was so close to finally summoning forth the Eldritch Dragon that part of the creature's giant eye was taking up the whole space of the portal. We attacked with everything we had. Jack backstabbed it with a nat 20 and rolled max damage. It was beautiful. John and Jane managed to pin Brax down with arrows and magically enhanced grappling hooks that Jane had brought specifically for this moment, as whenever she clapped her hands the hooks would increase their weight tenfold. And I even managed to push the Eldritch Dragon's eye back further into the portal after rolling a nat 20 myself. Soon we managed to close the portal thanks in part to the goblin NPC coming back and casting the spell he had seen Brax cast 100 times before. A little thank you from someone who had once been our enemy. Brax was pinned, and we finally went for the coup de grace. We smashed his skull in, and when his soul tried returning to his phylactery, only thing was that Jack had swiped it just before arriving at the final fight. With Brax now in the physical object, we dropped it inside a bag of holding. Then we called forth a djinn that we'd obtained back when Jane and Jack ended up falling into a long-forgotten cave. This was actually because me and John were sick that week and Joe just decided to let Jane and Jack have their own adventure. We had one wish left and we decided to use it the way we discussed. We handed the djinn the bag of holding and wished that the djinn would return to his lamp. This caused a bit of a problem that we were not expecting. You see, when you place a bag of holding inside another bag of holding, it causes a portal to the astral plane to open and destroy both items. So instead of killing Brax though, it simply released his soul into the astral plane, where Gilgame's dead body was floating around. For those who do not know who Gilgame was, a sworn enemy of Tiamat and a powerful demigod dragon. Joe sort of had to pause there as he realised as soon as we did that, we may have stopped Brax from getting the Eldritch Dragon, but he was now able to obtain the body of a demigod. To his credit, Joe gave us one turn to decide what to do, as nobody was expecting this to have happened. We all realised that if Brax was allowed to venture forward, he would find Gilgame's body and take it over, and that much power was scary to think of. We talked, and we discussed maybe trying to destroy the phylactery, but we know that was impossible due to wards and the fact it was made of well, freaking diamonds. Even if we had the power, we were terrified it would take too long and Brax would achieve his goals. We thought of pulling Brax back from the astral plane, but none of us were magic users, and such a thing had never been considered needed. So we all just sat there at the table, stumped on what to do and fearing we may have actually failed the campaign. That was until John spoke up. "I'll go in after him," he said somberly. "If I can kill his soul in the astral plane, then he'll be dead. For good." I wanted to argue with him on this, but nothing I could think of was an actual alternative. We were stumped, and the only way to save the world was for someone else to go in after Brax, and basically die with him. None of us had the capabilities to travel back. We'd be stuck there at best, and dead at worst. After a few seconds, Jack sighed. "Guess I'm coming with you then. Always wanted to see what kind of loot the astral plane has to offer." John tried arguing that he didn't need to when Jane cut in. "I'll come along too. I swore that I would protect you, no matter the obstacle. And besides, you're my friend." It did not take me long, but a few seconds to come to my own decision. We started this together. I guess it's only right we end it together. And so we leapt into the astral plane, and while I'd like to say we got another epic round of combat and got the chance to make our escape through some contrived means, Joe decided that the quest would end like this. The four of you, true companions and honest folk through and through, jumped through the portal and chased after Brax. The portal closes behind you, cutting you off from returning. The phylactery is the only object left in the room, and for a few quiet moments, nothing happens. Then, in one ear-splitting shriek, the diamond-carved phylactery for Brax cracks in two, falling to the ground before turning to dust and blowing away in the wind. The world is saved. Nobody would remember the barbarian who saved a horse from drowning or helped rescue a lost dog in the middle of the night, all because a little girl asked him, with tears in her eyes, to do so. Few would remember the elf who showed up one day with his memory being lost, falling in love with a pretty girl at the bar who seemed to be infatuated with a pointy-eared dork. Hardly any could tell you that the female elf loved carving little figures out of wood for children as she and her companions passed from town to town, or that she had a lovely singing voice, and the tales of the noble thief simply became stories that people would tell their children at night, hoping they would emulate his good deeds and selfishness. But if you go up to a certain mountain, you will find an old fortress, fallen apart and a shell of its former self. Inside the fortress, you will find a room where a great battle took place, where four good people stood against the manifestation of evil. In that room, you'll find 4 stones lined up together, each with a name of someone you do not know, and on their deeds that you don't remember. In front of those stones is a simple plaque, and on that plaque, scribbled in the hardly legible writings from the stumbling hands of a small green goblin, are 4 simple words. They loved you all. And wow, what a heartwarming and truly emotional story for a party to experience together, guys. They have my full respect. So what do you think of that ending? Comment below and let me know. And if you enjoyed the video and want more daily content like this, then please hit both that like and subscribe button. And I'll see you in the next one. Take care.